Hi everyone, Miss Elizabeth here for First Congregational Church of Muskegon Confirmation class. For today's video lesson, we again pull from Unit 6, the unit in our curriculum, about peace and justice. Our lesson today is about practicing humility. We're following the Progressive Christianity curriculum that First Congregational Church has purchased, although we do not own the copyright to the material. Our affirmation is, I know that the Spirit of the universe can do great and small things through me. Humility does not mean playing small or putting ourselves down. It means recognizing an infinite power greater than our little self. When we joyfully acknowledge our true selves with every breath, we see how humility and success can go hand in hand. Here's some quotes I want to share. From Thomas Merton, pride makes us artificial and humility makes us real. From the Bible, book of Philippians, chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourselves. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but to the interests of others. British writer Monica Baldwin said, what makes humility so desirable is the marvelous thing it does to us. It creates in us a capacity for the closest possible intimacy with God. And from the book of Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 2, when pride comes, then comes disgrace. But with humility comes wisdom. And the Sufi poet Jami said, never preen yourself that you are prideless, for pride is more invisible than an ant's footprint on a black stone in the dark of night. And from the book of John, chapter 13, verses 14 and 15, so if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. And from St. Augustine, do you wish to rise? Begin by descending. You plan a tower that will pierce the clouds? Lay first the foundation of humility. And from the song Humble and Kind by Tim McGraw, when the dreams you're dreamin' come to you, when the work you put in is realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. Practicing humility. Where does humility come in when self-esteem and self-confidence are valued so highly in our society? Perhaps you have experienced that secret little twinge when you notice self-esteem turns to boasting and puffing up with pride. Perhaps you've seen how pep talks and cheerleading can tip us towards a sense of entitlement and egotism rather than self-confident modesty. Recognizing the inner spirit in all of us leads to confidence in our true selves, not in the little self of I, me, mine. I challenge you to see the amazing possibilities open to you when you see God within yourselves and others. The outward self is not as important as allowing the true self, the Spirit in all, to do incredible and wonderful things through us, with us, and for us. Today's lesson includes a story of a good king who served his country well. The king was grateful his people were happy. Then one day he overheard the cook say to the assistant cook, "Our king is the best king we have ever had." And the king silently agreed. The next day the king overheard the gardener say to the assistant gardener, "Our king is amazing. He could do anything." And the king silently and strongly agreed. These thoughts, that he was the best and could do anything, filled the king's mind. He became displeased with anything ordinary, because the best king should only have the best of everything. One night, in the beautiful silvery light of the full moon, the king decided he wanted to touch the moon. He demanded the royal carpenter stack all the chests in the kingdom in a great tower. Everyone watched in wonder as the king carefully made the difficult climb to the top. When the king stretched up his hand as he stood on the last chest on the very top of the tower, the moon was still out of reach. But how could this be? He was the best. He could do anything. The king demanded that one more chest be sent up. All he needed was one more. "But there are no more chests, Your Majesty," the carpenter shouted up to the king. "Then take one from the bottom and send it up," the king commanded. The king's pride had finally made him blind to even the most obvious facts. There was nothing to be done but do as the king commanded. So the royal carpenter pulled on the handle of a chest at the bottom, and then everyone ran out of the garden as fast as they could. Of course, the tower toppled over with a huge crash. When every chest had fallen and the dust had settled, unbelievably, the king lived. He returned to his royal duties with a very different attitude. One day, he overheard the cook say to the gardener, "Our good king is foolish, but he is no longer full of pride." And the king silently and strongly agreed. In contrast, here's another story that I recommend, The Moon Singer by Clyde Robert Bulla. It is the story of a boy who lived a hard life, without much love, but plenty of hard work. At night, especially when the moon was full, he felt drawn to the solitude of the forest, and standing alone, with his face to the moonlit sky, wordless, haunting songs would come to him. He opened his throat and sang, clear and strong. It came to pass that a rich lord from the queen's palace discovered the boy's wonderful singing and proudly brought him to the palace to sing for her. But the walls shut him in, the air pressed in on him, and the boy could not sing. He was made to leave the palace and then driven from the only home he had ever known. Eventually, he did find a home and work among the shepherds. One night, he could not sleep. He went into the woods. The moon was bright. A breeze blew, and he could smell the leaves and grass and the sea beyond. Suddenly, he was happy. A song had come to him. He began to sing. His voice was clear and strong. Night after night he sang. The queen heard that the boy would sing alone in the forest, and so she went to listen. She hid herself, as did many people, to hear his song of the night, of the moon and the stars and the mist over the sea. Beautiful, the queen whispered. She listened that night and many another night, and the boy sang his songs, never knowing she was near. What made the difference in these two stories, inspired by the beauty of the moon? John Edwardson, former president of United Airlines, delivered a commencement speech for the class of 2020 at Purdue University. His claim? Humility is the key to success. Let's see how he says it. Thankfulness, humility, and an awareness of how difficult life is for many people are important to be a good leader. From my standpoint, the best way for me to keep in touch with what I call the real world and to understand what life is like for many, many people was by doing hands-on work with them in the community where they live, where they work, listening to their life stories and understanding what their struggles are. There's a world not too far from where I live in a Chicago suburb, and likely not too far from where many of you live, and possibly right where some of you are now watching this video, that is tough and difficult beyond the imagination of most of us. All of us need to understand the lack of hope, the desperation, and even the physical hunger that many children experience while growing up in the most prosperous country in the world. It takes a lot more than any government can do. It takes committed people like each of you to lend a helping hand, to have an open ear, an understanding heart, and some words of kindness and support to help change these situations. And doing that will keep you grounded, thankful, and help you be a better leader. In closing, I've been incredibly blessed to have the life I've had. If you're interested in more of John Edwardson's speech, check out the full transcript at the link I've put in the description below. For those of you joining us in the FCC Youth Virtual Hangout session later today, I can't wait to listen to your ideas with an open ear, a humble heart, and an eye for the beauty of the earth. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.